The January 18th, 2024 hearing for the Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission is now called to order. And if I could get everyone to please silence any audible devices that you may have. And if you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag
United States of America,
of the Republic,
to the
which
sustains
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with which
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you for joining us this morning at the chambers for this meeting. And I would like, if I could get Ms. Tucker, if you could please call the roll, please.
Good morning. Member Craig? Member Bender? Here. Member Shelley?
Here.
Member Costa?
Here.
Member Patterson?
Here.
Member Sixma?
Here.
And Chair Mills.
Here. Mr. Patterson has requested to attend the meeting by virtually this morning. And in order to do so, we have to take a vote on this by the members of the board. Is there any discussion on that request?
Nope.
All those in favor to allow him to attend by virtual signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Patterson, you're on board. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We do have minutes from the December 21st, 2023 meeting. Any discussion on those minutes?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve the minutes from December 21st from Mr. Sixma and a second from Ms. Shelley. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. All right. If anyone would like to speak for or against any of the cases being heard today, if you could please fill out a form at the back of the room and give it to Ms. Tucker to my immediate left. We will be limiting you to a 3-minute time limit. And after the comments have been heard, I will give the applicant an opportunity to address any concerns the speakers have and answer any questions the commissioners may have. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Soria for legal comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder for members of the public that decisions by this body on special exception cases and cases which rezone real property from one classification to another pursuant to the zoning ordinances are recommendations only to the County Council and do not constitute a final hearing. New evidence may be introduced at the County Council public hearing. Decisions on variances made by this body constitute final action subject to an appeal to the County Council. What this means is that no new evidence may be presented at the time of the County Council public hearing on the appeal. An aggrieved party that appeals such a decision is confined to the record made before this body. Hearings by this body on rezonings, special exceptions, and variances are quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that this body is acting more like a court and must take into account all oral, written, or demonstrative evidence presented. Their decisions on these cases must be based on competent substantial evidence in the record, and competent substantial evidence has been defined as that evidence a reasonable mind would accept to support a conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Soria. And while we're on legal comments, I would like to ask the commission to disclose for the record any ex parte communications that have occurred before or during the public hearing at which a vote is to be taken on any quasi-judicial matter. And I'll start to my immediate right with Ms. Craig.
None.
None. I just had a short conversation with Mr. Feller on our second case here, but no details.
Okay. And I also had a conversation with Mr. Feller on case V24007. Okay, do we have any items to be continued or withdrawn? Ms. Smith?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. We don't have any unfinished old business, so we're going to move right into the new business. And I would like to ask, I don't have the screen up here for,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Mr. Patterson?
I want to state that I had no ex parte communications with anybody.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Patterson. I have to remember you're up there on the screen and not here. I apologize for that.
You're going to have to tolerate my cute little face all morning.
Okay, all right. Yeah. No, I want to see that. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move right into new business this morning. So, Ms. Shelley, if I could get you to read the first case in.
Yes, sir. Case number V-24-002, variance to reduce minimum yard requirements on urban single-family residential R9 zoned property.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. And Mr. Shams, this one is yours.
Hi, good morning. Steve Shams with Planning and Development Services. The applicant is requesting two variances to reduce the yard requirements. Variance 1 is to reduce the east front yard from 25 feet to 5 feet. Variance 2 is to reduce the west rear yard from 20 feet to 10 feet. The site itself is comprised of 4 parcels. The original lots were approximately 25 feet by 100 feet, but right-of-way was conveyed to Volusia County in the 1950s. This reduced the lots to 50 feet deep. A non-conforming lot letter was provided and no common ownership was found. The R9 zoning class requires 7,500 square feet, but the total area of the 4 parcels is approximately 6,250 feet. R9 requires a front yard of 25 feet, a side yard of 7 feet, and a rear of 20 feet. Due to the constrained depth of the lots, variances will be required for development. If developed with the current setbacks, there would be a buildable footprint of about 5 feet by 111 feet. Other nearby properties have also applied for similar variances and have been approved, but none were to request a front yard of 5 feet. Overall, staff recommends denial of variance 1, as it fails to meet one of the 5 criteria, that being the minimum variance, as a lesser variance could be requested and a home could be built vertically. Variance 2, staff recommends approval, as this does meet all 5 criteria, and we recommend 2 conditions. One of the parcels be combined to a unified building site through land development, and 2, that the property must meet the Indian River Lagoon swim requirements. I'm available for comment or question.
Okay, any questions for staff? Mr. Patterson, do you have any questions for staff?
None.
Okay. Mr. Shams, you mentioned that there was other variances in the area that were requested, the front yard setback, but none was as close as 5 feet, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know the average request?
10 to 15 feet.
10 to 15 feet, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, is the applicant present? Morning,
Good
sir.
morning.
Could I get your name and address for the record?
Pete Zahn, Zahn Engineering,
Oh.
150 South Palmetto, Suite 201, Daytona Beach, 32114.
Okay, you heard the staff report. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
Just a severe restriction on the site, because of the taking of the right-of-way. Went out to the site, visited it. It appears that the 5-foot front setback is something that gives us a buildable footprint. Our company does a lot of work for Habitat. We do a lot of 50-foot wide lots. And the minimums we're working with are 40-foot wide buildings. And this gives us a footprint to prepare that. Something that's a little bit different on this, while there's 4 parcels, the 4th parcel is actually 2. So we have 5 25-foot pieces in there, which allows us to have a long, kind of a shotgun building north to south, and leave enough room on the south end for a two-car garage and additional parking. So there'd be no need for any parking in the right-of-way. So that's something that's a little bit different from this parcel from all of the others, is that we have the additional parcels to build on. It's just that there's no depth for it. That's the restriction.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Patterson, you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, I've got one here. How many stories is this residence going to be?
It could be two. You know, it's a 35-foot height limit, so I don't think they're planning for that. They had another house in this area some time ago, and it was much smaller. So I don't think their intention is one of these $1 million, I mean, there's a lot of pretty nice-looking, expensive homes down there, and I don't think they're looking for that kind of a size. They live in Virginia, and this would be a home that they would have down here. So I don't believe they'd go to 2 stories, but I don't know.
Okay. And I noticed that the building width, there's 35 feet, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
On the narrow end?
Right.
And the majority of the variances, as Mr. Shams was mentioning, has been 10 to 15 feet. To be more consistent, you couldn't do anything there with a 30-foot wide building?
You could, it just makes it that much smaller.
I understand.
It could happen. If the board were inclined to not approve the 5-foot front, obviously we couldn't do anything with it. So we could reduce the request for the variance to 10, which is consistent with a couple of the lots to the north.
That's where I was thinking on this.
Okay.
My line of thought. We'll see if we have any public participation, and if we do, I'll have you come back
Okay.
for rebuttal, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you.
Do we have any public participation for this case?
No, sir.
We do not. Okay, well, I'm going to open up for commission discussion. Close the floor for public participation. Mr. Patterson, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, we're going to open up the floor for public participation, close the floor for public participation, and open up for commission discussion. Okay.
I'll be glad to make a motion.
Okay, did anyone want to consider 10-foot rather than the 5-foot? To be more consistent with what the additional area
I
is
would rather see 10-foot myself, but
Anyone else want to speak in on this? Miss Craig? Okay. Mr. Bender, did you have any? Mr. Costa? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Shelley, with your motion.
Yes, sir. I move that case number V-24002 be a variance to reduce minimum yard requirements on urban single-family residential R9 zoned property be approved.
Variances 1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
Any modifications to the
No,
variances?
sir.
Okay. I'll second. Okay, I've got a motion on the floor to approve variances 1 and 2. For V-24002 for Ms. Shelley and a second for Mr. Costa, without any consideration of the 10 feet. It's to be the 5 feet. All those, any discussion on the motion? All those in
No.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I would like to have a roll call on this, please.
Member Craig?
No.
Member Bender?
No.
Member Shelley?
Yes.
Member Mills?
No.
Member Costa?
Yes.
Member Patterson?
Yes.
And Member Sixma.
yes.
That's
Okay,
a
1,
3 no, 4 yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-3. With Ms. Craig, Mr. Bender, and Mr. Mills being in dissent. Okay, we'll move right into the next one. Ms. Shelley, could I have that, please?
Yes, sir. Case number V-24-007, variances to the minimum yard requirements on tourist B8 zoned property.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. And Ms. Ray, this one is yours.
Good morning, Kristen Ray, Planning and Development Services. The applicant is seeking variances for a proposed residential pool. Variance 1 is to allow the proposed pool to be located within the front yard, and variance 2 is to reduce the north front yard from 20 feet to 10 feet. The property is a corner lot fronting Kingfish Avenue and South Atlantic Avenue. Therefore, the property is subject to 2 front yards and 2 side yards. In the B8 zoning, the front yard setback is 20 feet and the side yard setback is 5 feet. The variance is to the front yard to encroach closer to Kingfish Avenue. The property is currently being developed with a single-family residence with an approved variance from 2021. The proposed pool is in alignment with the single-family residence to the north front yard on Kingfish Avenue. Staff's recommendation is for denial. However, should the PLDRC find that the applicant had provided competent substantial evidence, 2 conditions have been provided for consideration. We did have 10 letters of opposition that have been submitted from the adjacent neighbors to the west, and I'm available for any question.
Any question for staff? Mr. Patterson, you have any questions for staff?
No, I'm,
Okay. Ms. Ray, was there a code violation with this request?
There was a code complaint that was called in and an advisory notice was sent out
And what was that in reference to?
to the pool being constructed prior to a building permit, but they stopped construction to apply for the swimming pool permit and then needed to apply for a variance for that permit.
Okay, thank you. All right, is the applicant present? Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Jessica Gow, Cobb Cole Law Firm, 149 South Rodwood Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. Thank you to staff for the presentation. I just have a few quick points on this I'll hit on and then be here for questions. I do have one exhibit that we made based on the variance packet. So this site is under construction for a home. I would say this board approved a variance from 20 to 10 feet for the, I'm going to call it the Kingfish front yard. In 2021, that variance was appealed to County Council, and County Council upheld your decision in granting that variance. We came in with a request to build a pool. I did want to clarify there was a complaint, there was an advisory notice. It was closed administratively. There's no violation that was found, no open code enforcement. The work that was being completed was actually pilings going in as part of the overall building permit. So the pool permit was submitted. No construction has started on the pool, but they did go out and measure and talk to, I think, one of the condo neighbors when the pool company was out there. This exhibit just shows what the current front yard of this site looks like. You guys know that we've struggled with the dual frontage before. I look at this and I say, imagine hiring someone to mow your yard and say, just the front yard. And they mow your front yard and you come back and you say, no, this is my front yard. Would they understand? Definitely not. Do most property owners that we see understand? No. We do have letters of opposition. I do want to clarify, a lot of them seem to note that the pool was encroaching further to the, towards the condo than what is permitted. We're not requesting any change in that rear setback, which I guess is a side setback on this site based on its orientation. So that's not changing. We're not getting any closer to them than we're currently allowed to be. It is just to line up the edge of the pool with the back of the house as approved by the former variance. You can see kind of the cut in on the front yard and the back. We did hear from staff that the side yard is actually 5 feet, so we're requesting 10 feet. So we are double what the setback would be if this was a side yard. It is just the interpretation of the code that anywhere fronting a road is a front yard. I would love to see that change to have the front yard be where the door is of the garage, which I think you also saw in the letters of opposition. I think there was some confusion. They said they're calling this a front yard, but it's not. I agree. It shouldn't be looked at like a front yard, but it is under the code. And so that's the general premise of the request, and I'm here for any questions.
Mr. Costa?
Yep. So I just want to clarify that what you just said, there is no variance request for the pool as it fit on the, I guess that would be the western end.
Correct.
Correct? Mm-hmm. And this is a corner lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so the variance is for the pool to actually line up with the actual house as opposed to being held to the 20-foot.
Correct.
So we have a corner lot situation here. Okay. All right. Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Patterson, you have any questions for the applicant?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Go. Comes from an original variance back in 22, I think it was.
2021 was
21.
the original approval by this board.
And at the time, Mr. Vega made a comment that because we questioned him as far as what the building height was going to be on this. And he, at the time, he said it was going to be 2-story. And now we see that it's 3-story.
Mhm.
And my concern is a lot of times when I make my decision on a variance of this nature, or the setbacks, is what the impact is going to be to the adjacent homeowners. And so why wasn't this also, that was one comment, that's more of a comment than anything else, but why wasn't this pool brought in when the original variance request was done?
At the same time, it would have been easier, definitely. We were not involved in that original process. I was not personally involved in the PLDRC review of that first one. In terms of building height, I know they're within the B8 height allowance for this type of structure. I don't know why. I think maybe they had taller floors and they shortened it to have the 3 instead of 2 taller floors. I do think it would have been much simpler for all of us if they had shown a pool footprint on that original variance and had you review at that time, but it just was not completed.
Okay. The other thing too has been brought to my attention that may be a possible viewing area on the top of this building, which would require a railing, and I think it's already at 35 feet. Are you going to come back in the future and request another variance for height?
If there is, the home is under construction by approved plans in compliance with the zoning. I'm not aware of any issues that are outstanding in that respect. We're just here for the setback.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do have some public participation. I'll allow you to come back for rebuttal when this is done. So we're going to start with Mr. Carpenter, or Miss Carpenter.
Good morning. My name is Becky Carpenter. My address is 312 Georgetown Drive in Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm here as the Community Association Manager for Ocean Club at Turtle Mound, which is the adjacent condo to the requested property. We have submitted a letter to the Planning Commission, which I believe you should all have received. If not, I do have copies available. Great. We are asking for this variance to be denied. While our owners have always understood that there would be development on these lots, in fact, they were required to sign something that said that they understood that, their decision to purchase their condos anyway was based on knowledge of what could be built with current ordinances, and obviously understanding that variances could happen. Approval of the requested variance would result in an almost 0 lot line, and also there are 2 other lots undeveloped directly adjacent to these that I believe this would set a precedent for. The development of oversized homes in this area would detract from the aesthetics and also be a danger in visibility, in that Kingfish is an extremely busy crossroad. There is a condo across from Atlantic Avenue called Cedar Keys, where owners and residents travel Kingfish to reach the beach access. There's also a public park and public parking all along the beach in front of these lots and houses, where 50 plus, maybe even 100 cars with the parking at the park travel daily. And so all 14 of our owners are in opposition to this, and we respectfully request that you deny this variance. Thank
Okay,
you.
and I needed to get your name and address also to put it for the record.
It's Becky Carpenter, 312 Georgetown Drive in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, Mr. Patterson, you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
I got a question. Go ahead.
Mr. Costa.
Yep. So my question is, your 14 owners are opposing what exactly? The building or the pool?
The variance for the pool. It will almost create a zero lot line at our property level. And again, if that sets the precedent for the two others, then we have a zero lot line for the entire.
That's why I'm confused, because there's no variance here as far as the western boundary is concerned. The pool is well within the setback. The variance is for the northern boundary, which is over on Kingfish, which is away from your condo. So I just wanted to clarify. So you're opposing the actual pool, not the house itself that's being built, correct?
No, I mean, not the pool, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Glenn Rehab. Good morning, sir. Could I get your name and address for the record?
Yes, Glen Ria, 6612 South Atlantic, Unit 202.
Okay, sir.
As Becky had stated that we did, when we purchased our condo 4 years ago, we did expect the fact that buildings would be built there. We never imagined this monstrosity that was there. It's taken up more and more space. It's decimated our neighborhood. I am absolutely opposed to any more variances on this property.
All right, sir. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, Mr. Patterson, you got any questions?
No, I'm
Okay. All right. Our next speaker is Mr. Thomas Johnson. Good morning, sir. Could I get your name and address for the record?
Thomas Johnson, 6612 South Atlantic Ave, Unit 203.
Okay.
And just wanted to confirm you guys received my opposition letter?
Yes, sir.
And would I be able to share some of the talking points and pictures?
You can give it to Ms. Tucker to my immediate left here, and it becomes part of the record.
Thank you. So as Glenn just mentioned, we all understood there's going to be development on this property. No issue with that. In 2021, I attended the hearing, and Robert Vega, who was the original builder, presented a presentation that showed this was going to be a two-story shotgun home. He stated if he can get the variance, he could build a two-story home. No pool, no enclosure was contemplated. Fast forward to 2023, it's now a three-story home, now requesting a pool on a small corner lot where it's extremely busy, as Becky mentioned, where there's the park entrance. It's one way in, one way out. I specifically spoke to Mr. Vega and asked why he's not the original builder anymore. And he stated, I could build a two-story home. I can't build what this owner is now looking to build, which now is a three-story, potentially with a 10-foot wall going above 35 feet, now with a pool. So I ask that you based on just owners in that area and the aesthetics, this is a mini New York City four-story high-rise that is being built, a four-story flat roof house that does not meet the aesthetics in the area at all. I ask that you decline this request for a variance based on those factors.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for the speaker? Okay, hearing none. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a Mr. Frank Hill.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My name's Frank Hill. My residence is 6612 South Atlantic Avenue, New Smyrna Beach. And I'm standing here in opposition of this variance also as one of the owners directly west of the variance request. I'm just concerned that we're here on our second variance hearing. As you made question earlier, I fully expect that you guys will have another variance for a few other things that may go on the property because there's been alterations to the building up to this point to require those variances. So I would like for you guys to deny this one, and let's finish where we're at right now.
Okay, sir. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Frank Hill. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. David Harper. Good morning, sir. Could I get
Hi.
your name and address for the record?
Yes, I'm David Harper. My address is 608 Bentley Lane, Maitland, Florida, and I'm the property owner of 6604 South Atlantic, which is the property immediately adjacent to the property under consideration here for the variance. I come today really to speak neither before or against the motion, but simply to maybe bring some clarity to the issue. The properties that are, the three properties that are along South Atlantic in front of the condo that's have been represented by the various speakers, are generally 40-foot wide lots, with the exception of the property owner that's applied for the variance that's being discussed here today happens to be 45 because it's a corner lot. The request for the pool is simply to line it up, as I understand it, with the house. It's not to extend it forward of the house. I have a situation on my property where I'm in preliminary approvals. I've been asked to move my pool back, contract it to 24 feet so that it does not line up with a house, but in fact is set back further than the 5-foot setback on the lot. So I would like to see some consistency. I don't understand why my pool would have to be 24 feet long. My kids won't even be able to swim in such a pool. These lots are tiny. When these lots were platted, I didn't have anything to do with that. I'm sure the property owner that's applying for the variances today didn't have anything to do with that. They're attractive lots. They're in a good location. They are what they are. In my case, I have no intention of applying for any variances. And it doesn't seem that I'm aware of any problems with the house that's in conversation today, other than wanting to line the pool up with the face of the house, which seems reasonable. And as the representative for the owner spoke about earlier, it probably should have been asked for in the original zoning variance request on the front setback along Kingfish. The fact that it wasn't done, to me, was probably just an oversight. So I just want to try to bring some understanding to these properties. They are a little bit unique. They're in a B8 zoning configuration, and they're very small lots because they're residential lots.
Okay, sir. Any questions for the speaker? All right. And then I have Mr. Richard Feller. Good morning, sir. If I
Good
could get your
morning,
name and
staff.
address for the record.
My name is Richard Feller of New Smyrna Beach. I'm a licensed realtor and soon-to-be licensed residential contractor in Florida as well, too. Just got a proof of that.
Okay.
All right. I believe Ms. Tucker's going to broadcast this up. So I think it's important for you to see what I've put together and tell you why I'm here. First off, it is great to see all of you again. I am speaking to ask to deny the variance that's before you today. The packet that I've just put forward will go over all my reasons, and it should be pretty quick. So the first page, this is basically a summary of the original hearing, and some of the things that we talked about have already been there. 5 of the board members currently here heard this hearing before, so I'm not going to harp on it, but there was a lot of talk about a 2-story home. It was going to be in line with the neighborhood, a single-family residence similar to the other 2 homes. But here's what I want to make. The variance was approved and is limited to the size and location of the residence on the site plan. Unfortunately, I couldn't see the site plan because that was a PowerPoint presentation. So if we go on to the next page really quickly, the 2 points I want to make are, in general, when this was granted, when this variance was granted, EP, environmental permitting, did not object, but they wanted to make sure that certain guidelines were being met. I haven't seen anything that those guidelines have been met. There was a gopher tortoise found. I don't have any idea if that was remediated. Those were questions that came up. But my second point was more about what we're doing here today, and that was that the original variance was approved with the size and location. Now, if the setbacks were the only issue, there'd be no need for the word size. It would just be location. So why do we have the word size in there? Because this was sold as a 2-story home, almost like you were saying, Mr. Mills, where when you look at a variance, you look at all the information. If you look at the next page, you'll see that this is definitely not a 2-story home. And Mr. Mills, when I spoke to you, you had asked about the condo's location to that back property line as well, too. So I went ahead and got those numbers for you. They're right here. From the lot line, the sidewalk that the condo uses to access their pool and their trash and everything is 14 foot from the lot line. The stairwell is 19 foot, and then the balcony, where the actual full structure of the building is 21 feet. So I know you wanted to see that, so I got that for you. So that was that. So on page 4, this is really specific to today's variance. There's been a lot of talk that this is a variance for the north side. I'm not going to use front yard, side yard, because that is what's confused most of the homeowners as well. The Kingfish side, I don't believe should have ever been granted because this is a main thoroughfare into Mary McLeod Park. It is traveled by 50 to 100 cars a day. It gets very busy down there. What I'm more concerned about is that west side that they're not requiring a variance for. They said earlier today that there was no construction and no violations or anything, but according to the site plan here, it shows that the red lines, which are usually the setback lines, show 4.38 feet and 3.95 feet. That's not 5 feet. Now, I don't know if you'll forgive me. I did ask all the other condo owners not to come in and take up too much time. So if I could have a little latitude on time, that would be
Right, I would
great.
like to ask you to tell me what you were talking about for the setback on that property line.
If you look at the picture that's in front of you, the two blue arrows are the west side setback, and it should be a 5-foot setback for an accessory structure, not for the primary dwelling, but for the accessory structure. Why are those numbers 4.38 and 3.95?
Okay, I'll have the,
That's my question in the sense of if you're not reading on the 5-foot setback, why are those numbers low? Then if you switch to the next page, and again, I'm going fast in honor of your time because you've heard a lot of this. On the next page, they said that nothing's been done, but footers have already been poured for this. Now, yes, some of them are where the accessory structure is allowable currently without any variance, but if you look at the bottom left image, that footer is in the area that you are either approving or denying a variance for. So that's already been poured and done. So that was dug up, poured, redone. If we can go on to page 5, that was page 5, that was where the footers are. Page 6 now, this was supposed to just be some more pictures of the sheer size of the house, but it brought one more thing up to me, and that was that picture on the right with the opening, the hole. On this board, we've heard other builders talk about, and it's very common to have rooftop decks down there, but this house does sit at 35 feet right now. If there's any structure on that roof, which it looks like there's going to be a proposed structure on that roof with that hole, I'm sure it's not a skylight, it's going to be back in front of you again. And I believe one of the homeowners spoke to one of the construction members about it, and that's where that picture of where they're talking about a 10-foot wall. So if we flip from this to the next page, there's 2 more lots. We've already talked about those 2 lots, and I think, again, one of the owners, the owner of the middle lot there, I kind of pointed to that he's going through some zoning requests right now for this lot. I know when you heard this request, well, we were hearing this request today, but back in 2021, the variance asked for, just a little bit, off of Kingfish. And now the current owner was at that hearing. Now the landowner's here asking for another little bit more. And I'm assuming based on that other picture that we're going to ask for a little bit more when it comes to the rooftop deck, as we've already seen that done. And so you say, well, what's the harm in this? There's harm. Surrounding area is harmed. Kingfish is the main access road, as we've talked about many times. This is B8 zoning. I don't even know why it's B8 zoning. In 2015, they had residential classification. It should have been registered, R9 lots, not B8. So based on everything I've spoken about, what you've heard from the residents, I cannot support this variance, and I would hope that you be opposed to it as well. You may ask, why didn't the condos just purchase this land? Outside of the astronomical price, that's not what this is about. It's about approving variances based on testimony and general evidence that's been put in forward, and come to find out everything's been changed entirely. The original variance was granted for the location, the size has changed, and that's not right. Now the same caveat is being applied or asked in today's variance. Is that going to stand? The Turtle Mountain condos, if they had bought these lots, I'd hope I'd be here making the same argument. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I thank the Turtle Mountain condos for having me out here to speak.
Any questions for Mr. Feller? Okay. Is Mr. Patterson still with us? Any questions, Mr. Patterson? Okay.
All right.
All right. So, okay, thank you, sir. All right, can I get Ms. Go to come back forward, please? You've heard the speakers this morning, and then was there anything you'd like to rebuttal on that?
Certainly. For the record, again, Jessica Gal, Cobb Cole Law Firm, 149 South Rodridge Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. Try to do it faster. There are just a few quick points that I want to clarify. I do hear the comments and the concerns about the construction versus the variance. The prior variance was for a setback from 20 feet to 10 feet. That has been complied with. Anything else that was constructed on this lot has been reviewed for compliance with the zoning district applicable to the site. I think we heard comments by Mr. Fowler that perhaps it should have been residential and not B8, but that's what the zoning classification is. I did want to note that two of the residents, some of them noted that it would create a 0-foot rear setback line. I just want to clarify that's not correct. We're not modifying that rear setback. Mr. Feller noted there is some call out on this about you've got random measurements on the site. We're not modifying that setback. The setback will be as per the land development code. We will have to build to that. If we did not, there would be code enforcement. But that will all be reviewed during the building permit review. This is a conceptual layout showing you the variance request for the front yard along Kingfish. There was also a question about setting precedent for the other lots. This won't set precedent, one, because as we know, variances don't set precedent. They all stand on their own. But this is also the only corner lot in this situation. The other two are not corner lots and wouldn't have this alignment laid out. There was a lot of general comments about the structure that's already been made, including environmental concerns. I'll just reiterate, this has gone through review, was permitted, and no pool construction has begun. And there is no open code enforcement violations for this site. With that, I'm here for any follow-up questions.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Bender?
Without this variance, can the pool be constructed?
If you
It
were
just
to,
won't be lined up with the house. It may not be as pretty for the owners, but can the pool be constructed without the variance?
so it's interesting that the other adjacent owner came in and noted how small his pool would be. We did the rough math. Without this variance, a pool constructed, once you take in the setback, the 3 feet additional from the edge of the deck to the edge of the water, would, I think, be around 12 feet long. So I don't think that that is an economically feasible pool, I would say. That's about here to here.
Okay. Mr. Costa? You don't have any questions? Okay. Any follow-up, Mr. Bender? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, do we have any public participation for this case anymore? Okay, we're going to close the floor for public participation and open up for commission discussion. Mr. Costa?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. I just want to clarify a few things. Can we put up page 16 of 19, please, from the report? While she's doing that, back when we approved the first variance in 21 or 22, we didn't make any stipulation as far as maximum height for the building.
No.
By right, what is the maximum height that they can build?
35 feet.
35 feet. Period. And currently, the way it's being designed and approved by staff, the building permit, I'm assuming, for the 3-story building, it is at that maximum of 35 feet?
We can look up the building permit for you, but it would be less than 35 feet to get approved.
Under 35 feet to get approved. So let's assume that they wanted to put a deck on there. If it's at 34, at the most they could do is a 1-foot deck. But I don't believe that would meet code. Is that correct?
We would have to see what they're putting in.
Okay, all right. But by right, they can build up to 35 feet. That's not a question here. Thank you. The second thing I have is for staff, if this lot, looking at this picture here, this lot is a 45 by 100, I believe is what's the size. Take that lot and move it to the south, one lot, and keep the dimension at 45 by 100. Would this variance be required?
No, sir, because the side lot,
It's only because it's on a corner lot. Is that correct?
correct.
All right, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I'm going to go back to my original comment when I was talking about this. When this original variance was presented to us, as you stated, Mr. Costa, it was for a two-story home. We didn't put a limit on it, and obviously probably we didn't know if we could, but Mr. Paulo, since then, we've had a few cases where we can do that. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
Paulo?
if you're granting a zoning variance to a setback, having a wider footprint,
Mhm.
and the justification is, I need a wider house, otherwise I'm going to build higher, then you can shift the box to
Mhm.
accommodate a reasonable construction. But if you don't have a condition limiting the development, then the condition on the granting of the zoning variance is they now have a 10-foot setback to
Right.
Kingfish for the residential structure as shown, and there was no indication that there was any height or story limitation.
Okay. Well, what this does for me was it impacts, I look at the adjacent property owners and what the impact is on it when I approve or deny a variance. And what was presented originally, and I know that's not part of this variance, but it kind of helps me make my decision because they can have a pool without the additional setback, the reduction of the setback to the front property line or the sideline. So now I'm not inclined to give any more variances on this, because the next thing you know, we'll come in and they will be requesting a height variance. So I like to see it all as one package, and this is a learning lesson for me that I will definitely when someone tells me they're going to do a two-story, that we put restrictions on it to that where it will be. But it is what it is. They're within their right to build the three-story. But anyway, that's where I'm at. They can put the pool in, and any more impact on the adjacent property owners, I'm not willing to do when they can have a pool. No different than the gentleman building beside them.
Question for legal. Back to the comment regarding the stipulating the height limit. Can we interject that here with this variance approval or request?
It would only apply to the pool.
Only the pool, but we couldn't put a restriction on the height of the house at the same time?
No, because it's not subject to the variance. The
Okay.
variance request is for the pool.
Only,
And
yes.
I don't know if they want a pool covering structure or something like that, but you can, if you're concerned about height,
Mhm.
Well,
I'm talking about the overall height of the structure itself. I think
But you're limited to the requested
just the
variance. which
request
is
that we're put forth. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
No,
Ms. Shelley?
So if they wanted to do an enclosure on this pool, if this pool's allowed, they need another variance. Is that correct? No? Okay, okay, I wanted to clarify that. I heard all the no's. Is that correct? No, they won't need another variance if they're going to enclose the pool. Correct. Thank you.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Costa? Mr. Bender? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm not
Just
even
holler
pushing.
at me. Just holler at me, sir.
Just throw something at us.
We try to make it work.
As being here for the original request, and we've seen this in other times, people will come forward and they'll make a request and then they'll come back. And I'm not in support of that. I think you should put the full picture in front of us so that we can make a firm decision on that, which it almost feels like, it could be, well, we'll get this and then we'll come back later and get that, and that's not a good thing for me. And then I think you'd need to give a lot of consideration to the existing property owners and the effects on them. So I'm not inclined to approve any variances being that they can have a pool, and then we'll still have some consistency with the gentleman that spoke earlier, with how things are being done, so.
Okay, any other comments? Ms. Craig?
I would have to agree with Mr. Bender that it's, the variances that have already been granted did not speak to this issue at all, and it's like they're pushing the limits to it, and I think it's, they've gone beyond.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak? Mr. Patterson, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Yeah. Is any?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Well, Mr. Costa's already requested to make the motion, so I'm going to let him make the motion at this time.
All right.
Mr. Costa?
Yep. On case V-24-007, I make a motion to approve variances number 1 and 2 with the staff recommended conditions.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, I've
Just
got
to
a
move it
motion to
forward.
approve variances 1 and 2 for V-24-007 from Mr. Costa and a second from Ms. Shelley. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I will request a roll call vote on this, please.
Member Craig? Just for the record, that was a no vote. Member Bender?
No.
Member Shelley?
Yes.
Chair Mills?
No.
Member Costa?
Yes. Yes.
Member Patterson?
No.
And Member Sixma?
No.
That was
Okay,
a 5 to 2.
The motion fails to carry by a 5 to 2 vote.
So, Mr. Chair, we've done this before. We generally like our motions to be kind of in the affirmative. So while the question failed, the application is still live unless someone.
So we
makes
need a motion for denial. Okay.
Okay, I will make a motion in case V-24-007. I will agree with staff's recommendation of denial.
Okay, do I have a
A
second?
second.
Okay, I got a motion on the floor for Mr. Sixma for denial of variances 1 and 2 for V-24-007, and a second for Mr. Bender. We'll have a roll call on that motion.
Member Craig?
Yes.
Member Bender?
Yes.
Member Shelley?
Yes.
Chair Mills?
Yes.
Member Costa?
No.
Member Patterson?
Yes.
And Member Sixma?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries 6 to 1 with Mr. Costa in dissent. Okay, can we have our next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number V-24-008, variances to the minimum yard requirements on urban mobile home MH5 zoned property.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. And this is, let me see here. Mr. Hanson.
Good morning, Michael Hanson, Planning Development Services. This particular variance application is for a conforming MH5 zone property, interior lot fronting off Alice Street. There are 6 variance requests comprised of a number of structures. So to make it easier to understand, I've grouped the variance requests based on the structures. So variance number 1 relates to the mobile home dwelling itself. Variance 2 and 3 relate to what I call carport 1, which is the carport in the bottom left corner of the site plan. Variance 4 relates to the second carport, which is to the right of carport 1. Variance 5 and 6 relates to carport 3, which is to the right of the middle carport. In review of the case, we note that the mobile home was permitted and installed back in 1991. However, based on the survey, the southwest corner of the mobile home is measured at 4.8 feet. The MH5 zoning classification requires a side yard setback of 5 feet, so it's slightly encroaching within that setback, and that is the nature of variance 1. Variance 2 relates to the side yard of carport 1. So the 3 carports were put in, and we didn't have any records of permitting for them, but they were there prior to the owner's acquisition of the property back in 2004. So they've been there approximately at least 20 years. But carport 1 was put in at the extension of where the mobile home ends, so it actually encroaches into the side yard as well at the same measurement of 4.8 feet in lieu of 5 feet. Variance 3 goes to the length of the carport off of the front yard setback. And the request is actually to reduce the front yard setback from 20 feet to 0 feet. It should be noted that prior to the variance application coming in, this carport actually encroached into the right-of-way, and once the applicant found out that it was encroaching in the right-of-way, he did apply for a demolition permit to remove the portion that did encroach into the right-of-way, and applied for the variance to potentially keep the remaining portion of that carport. Variance 4 for carport 2 is also to reduce the front yard from the 20 feet to 5.6 feet for that existing middle carport. Variance 5 also would reduce the front yard of 20 feet to 5.6 for that third carport. Variance 6 is a side yard setback variance, reducing the required 5-foot side yard to 2.7 feet for that carport number 3 in the southeast corner. Staff recommendations for the variances. We had a recommendation for approval on variance 1 for the mobile home, noting that it had been permitted in its location. It's been there over 30 years now, 34. Variance 2, we have a recommendation denial, noting that it fails 2 of the 5 criteria for granting variance. Variance 3, we have recommendation denial, noting that it fails 4 of the 5 criteria. Variances 4 through 6, we have a recommendation for denial, noting that it fails 3 of the 5 criteria. We did receive 2 letters of support from the adjacent property owners to both the east and west side of this property in support of the variance applications. We do have 2 staff recommended conditions should the PLDRC find grounds for approval for the variance request, noting that the variances are limited to the size and location of the structures shown on the variance site plan, and that the property owner or their authorized agent shall apply for the necessary required building permits for all the structures, noting carport 1, 2, and 3, within 180 days of rendition of this variance. I'll yield for any questions the PLDRC may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Mr. Costa, you had a question?
I do. Carports 1, 2, and 3. Those aren't new construction, are they?
No, sir. Per my conversations with the applicant, they've been there prior to the acquisition of the applicant owning the property prior to 2004. So they've been there for at least 20 years.
Prior to 04. Okay, so but we don't know that they go back all the way to 91 at this point either.
Yeah, we don't have records of permitting, so we don't know exactly when they were put in.
Okay. And the reason that this is here is because of the 1-story garage that was built without a permit. Is that correct?
And that's correct. The case originally came to us due to code compliance issue with the garage. That's 478 square feet in the rear of the property.
Mm-hmm.
However, that meets the setback, so it doesn't actually require a variance for the garage. And they have a pending building permit for the garage, but because of the pending building permit, they were made aware of the issues with the carports and the location of the mobile home. So that's why we're trying to clean up that portion.
So the 1-story garage issue is currently being addressed.
That's correct.
By them and staff, correct?
Sure.
Okay, and so we're just basically cleaning up, doing housekeeping here on variances 1 through 6?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Mr. Bender.
Do you have any idea what's the construction material for garage number 3? What is that? That it almost appears to be one of those pipes with.
I'm not aware of the actual materials. I believe there are pictures of carport number 3 in the staff packet.
It is on page 15, but that's what I'm thinking. Is those pipe tents with the gray tops on them. That's what that looked like, and I find it hard to believe that thing has been there for 20 years.
Unfortunately, I would have to defer to the applicant on that material.
Okay, maybe they can clear it up there. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Mr. Patterson, you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Okay. I'm not showing the applicant is present. I don't get it either, but do we have any public participation on this case? So we're going to close the floor for public participation and open up.
Mr.
for
Chair,
commission.
because we don't have an applicant, I'm assuming he was notified and noticed that his item was here. The applicant has basically forfeited their right to contest and present evidence. So you may proceed and you may rule on the item, or you can continue it to a date certain.
All right, sir. Thank you for the information. Okay, we're going to close for public participation and consider either continuance or going forward with it. This up to this board whether you would like. If you'd like the applicant here, we can continue it, or we can move forward.
Well, the only reason I would want the applicant here is to find out what he knows about those structures, but from what I understand, they purchased this back, what, in '04?
That's correct, sir.
So if it was there when it was there when they purchased it, I mean, that'd be my only question. I'm in agreement with the one carport looks like just an erect-a-set pole barn, if you will. That I mean, if it lasted 20 years, and they bought a damn good one. So I know mine only lasted 3 or 4. But with that, I mean, I'm ready to make a motion on this. This is all cleanup stuff at this point.
All right, Mr. Costa, I'll accept the motion.
Can we, and let me ask you this, can we attach that in the event, or is it automatic, in the event that any of these structures get damaged more than, is it 50%?
We can put that in there.
It is not automatic.
It is not?
Put it in there, though.
Because what you're doing is you are taking them from a non-conforming structure
Mhm.
and essentially by the variance making them conforming. So if you want these structures, if they're damaged beyond a certain threshold, to be removed, my recommendation is to put that condition on.
What was the standard? Is it 50 or 75?
75
75.
in the non-coastal high hazard area.
Okay. Well, let's try it that way then. So then I'll make a motion on case V.
Ms. Craig, go ahead.
I'm wondering if there's fencing along the sides of the property. I'm a little concerned basically about a safety issue. If there's a fire, what kind of access does the fire department have to this quote-unquote garage in the back, which I don't see how a car could get into that, but it looks like a fire hazard to me.
Okay. And we don't have the answer to that, correct? I guess they could go through one of that open carport, because it looks like any of these carports do not have a back end to it, a wall or anything. And the height of the building in the back wouldn't require a ladder truck or anything.
No.
They just drag hoses through there, I would imagine. I mean, that's just my perception on that. Okay. I mean, if they were enclosed, that'd be different, but none of them are enclosed.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Ms. Shelley?
I actually pushed the button just to see if you'd recognize me.
Well, I got to remember to look.
Just going that in one of the staff recommendations, they do have to apply for the required building permits for these structures within 180 days. Wouldn't that flag some things, perhaps some of the issues that we're talking about, or no?
So with the permitting for the carports, our zoning technicians, when they're going through the review, they take a look to make sure that the carports are meeting the letter of the rendition for the variance as far as setbacks. Building permits are sent for reviews to our building department, our zoning team, and also our environmental team for reviews on those prior to issuance. The garage is a separate building permit that is in-house, so that's under review currently.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Costa, if you'll go ahead and proceed, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion on case V-24-008 that we approve variances 1 through 6 with the 2 staff recommended conditions and the addition of any destruction beyond 75% of the buildings, they'd have to come back and get another variance.
I'll second that.
Just to clarify, that 75% is, I believe, the value of the property as determined by the property appraiser.
Okay, we'll add that to it. Thank you.
And I'll second that.
All right. I got a motion from Mr. Costa to approve variances 1 through 6 for variance V-24-008 and with the 2 staff recommended conditions, and also to add this, if any of these carports get damaged more than 75% of the value of the property.
Value of the structure, not the structure.
Value of the structure, okay, value of the structure, then they would have to come back and apply for another variance. Do you want to add that to the mobile home too, or just the?
Well, the variances are just for the mobile home.
I mean, we're only talking.
Yeah, I mean, because it's all going to be lumped together as far as the value is concerned, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Yep.
The mobile home too.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So through all 6 variances, for Mr. Costa, and who give me the second on that, Ms. Shelley?
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Shelley, give me a second on that. Any discussion on the motion?
May I ask for clarification, please? You spoke about the mobile home. I believe it's a few inches from where it was supposed to be. Did you include that in the, if it's destroyed more than 75%?
Yes.
Well, that's what I was questioning, and he said yes. Okay. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
One opposition.
Okay.
Oh.
Motion carries. Mr. Bender is a no also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion carries 4 to 3. I mean, 5 to 3, 5 to 2, with Mr. Sixma and Bender in dissent. Correct? Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next case, please. Ms. Shelley?
Yes, sir. Okay.
009.
Yes, I was just making sure I've shuffled the other one to the other stack. Case number V-24-009, a variance to reduce minimum yard requirements on transitional agriculture A3 zoned property.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. And this is Mr. Shams.
Hi, good morning. Steve Shams again. The applicant is requesting 2 variances to reduce yard requirements for a proposed 624 square foot shed. Variance 1 will reduce the rear yard from 40 feet to 15 feet, and variance 2 will reduce the south side yard from 25 feet to 12 feet. The property is currently developed with a single family home and 2 sheds. The first shed is approximately 196 square feet and located 7 feet from the southern boundary, as seen on the site plan. The second shed is approximately 90 square feet and used as a well pump house and is located 59 feet from the rear yard, or for the rear property boundary. The first shed is being replaced by the new proposed shed, and this new shed, because it is over 500 square feet, is subject to the principal setbacks. A3 requires a 25-foot side yard and a 40-foot rear yard, and the proposed shed is within both of those yards. According to the written petition, placement of the shed is based on the location of the pump house and an elm tree. Overall, staff recommends denial of variances 1 and 2, as they fail to meet 4 of the 5 criteria. Staff found that there are other places on the property where a shed could be located that would either not require a variance or would require a reduced variance. And we have 1 condition, and if you do vote to approve this, that's limited to the size and location of the variance site plan. And I'm available for comment or question.
Thank you, Mr. Shams. And do we have any questions for staff? Hearing none. Mr. Shams, if this was residential, or what would be the setbacks?
You said for RR?
Oh, yes, sir.
Let me check that for you. $40 in the rear and 15 on the side.
15 on the side?
Yes, sir.
And then for residential, is 5 foot on the side and
Residential R4 is 7 on the side, and I believe 20 in the rear.
okay. That's what I need to know. All right, is the applicant present? You want to come forward, ma'am? Good morning, ma'am. Could I get your name and address for the record?
Mary Browder, 5730 West Street, DeLeon Springs, Florida 32130.
Okay, you heard the staff report. Was there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I wish I understood it, but I don't. I mean, I don't understand what the approved one thing out of 5. Guess I don't understand the 4 things that they denied. And one of the things said the shed could be located in different areas on the property. I don't understand where that could be, because the this is the southwest where I want to put it. The northwest side, the northwest back, that's a low area, but it wouldn't meet setbacks anyway. And then the house is to the immediate north, and that's a septic tank. So then you got the front yard, and then the only other place in the yard is the southwest, which is where I'm asking to put this new shed. So I'm confused with the 4 out of 5 things it doesn't meet. I don't understand the wording. It's just a shed.
Okay.
That's all I want. I always wanted a barn.
Okay. And it's where an existing one in,
No,
is
I
now.
just have one of those that are delivered on the
kids?
runner things, and it's about 40 years old. I brought it from my other house, and so it's about had it. It'll be removed.
Okay.
And then the pump house will stay there, and that's one thing I need to avoid, as far as I want to be able to comfortably drive around everything to deliver garden stuff or repair stuff, or if they have to do some kind of repair to the well, you know, those trucks need a lot of room. And then I'm trying to not kill my elm tree.
Okay.
So I don't know what else to say, because I don't understand the 4 things.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. We'll see if we have any public participation forms, and hopefully we'll get you out of here with a positive.
My neighbor, the only neighbor that his property and my property abut each other on the south, west or southwest. He signed a little letter saying he didn't have any problem with any variance that I requested, and so you should have that in there. And so that's the only property owner I asked. The others got their letters and all.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
That's all.
All right, any questions for the applicant? Okay, we don't have any. Okay. You may have a seat now, ma'am. Do we have any public, we're going to close the floor for public participation and open up for commission discussion or a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Sixman.
I would make a motion that case B24-009 be approved with one staff recommendation.
Second.
A question, was there a letter of support that is not in our packet?
No, it's not in the packet.
I didn't see it in the packet.
Staff did not receive the letter,
Okay,
or at least one was not presented to me.
okay, thank you.
I'm going to take your word for it.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we can't hear you, but we're gonna go ahead and take your word for it.
Yep.
And you'd have to come back up to the podium. You're fine. All right, Mr. Sixman,
I already made a motion.
with the one
And I
staff
seconded
condition.
it.
And you got a second.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm getting a little sidetracked. Okay, I've got a motion to approve variances 1 and 2 for case V 24009 for Mr. Sixman and a second from Ms. Shelley with the one staff condition. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, you got it. You got your variance. Okay. Ms. Shelley, can I get the next case, please?
You can leave.
Yes, you can, yes, you can leave, yeah. Ms. Shelley, can I get the next case, please?
Can I leave right now? Just kidding. Case number V-24-010, variances to the minimum yard requirements and maximum lot coverage on urban single-family residential R9 zoned property.
Okay, and this is Ms. Ray.
Good morning, Kristen Ray again. The applicants are seeking variances to construct a 385 square foot home addition. Variance 1 is to reduce the west rear yard from 20 feet to 10 feet. Variance 2 is to increase the maximum lot coverage from 35% to 37.9%. And variance 3 is to allow development on a substandard lot. The property is 4,800 square feet, and the minimum lot area in an R9 zoned property is 7,500 square feet. With the property being under 5,000 square feet, it is considered a substandard lot. However, a variance to separate nonconforming lots is not required due to permitted single-family residences on the adjoining properties. Staff's recommendation for variance 1 and variance 2 is for denial, and staff's recommendation for variance 3 is for approval. Should the PLDRC find that the applicants have provided competent substantial evidence, the following condition has been provided for consideration, that variances 1 through 3 are limited to the size and location of the proposed home addition as shown on the variance site plan. And I'm available for questions.
Any questions for staff? Is the applicant present? You want to come forward, please? State your name and address for the record, please.
Alec Ribbing, 4040 Oriole Avenue, Port Orange, Florida.
Okay, you've heard the staff recommendations on this project. Do you have anything to add to that?
I guess the recommendation for denial was based on the 35% lot coverage and the fact that I'm choosing to add the addition. I guess just to give you guys the reasoning why we need the addition. We have a growing family. The current structure that we're living in is 952 square feet. So this is just for a bedroom, bathroom addition. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
Okay, you have any questions for the applicant?
No, it's just a bump out on the house, on the existing house, right?
Just a bump out, yes, sir.
Nope, I don't have any other questions. I do have a question for staff, though.
Okay. All right, we'll give it a chance. We'll see if, do we have any public participation? All right. We're going to close the floor for public participation. Mr. Costa, you had a question for staff?
Yeah,
You can
so
have a seat, sir.
if this were to be done, let's eliminate the bump out altogether, the original footprint of the house. If this were to be done as an ADU, would they still be tied to the 39% or the lot coverage percentage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So regardless whether it's attached or detached, this makes no difference here whatsoever, right?
Correct.
All right. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion, or I'll accept the motion.
I'll be glad to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve a variance to the minimum yard requirements and maximum lot coverage on the urban single-family R9 zoned property, case number V24-010,
Second.
with the one staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay. Is the motion on the floor for all three variances?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I got a motion on the floor to approve variances 1, 2, and 3 for case V24010 with the one staff condition from Ms. Shelley and a second from Mr. Costa. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Shelley, could I get the next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number V-24-012, a variance to the minimum yard requirements on prime agricultural A1 zoned property.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shelley. And this is Ms. Ray again.
Hello. So the applicant is seeking a variance to reduce the west side yard from 50 feet to 19.10 feet for a proposed 660 square foot carport. The property does have an agricultural classification. It is surrounded by agricultural properties to the west, north, and east. Staff's recommendation is for denial. Should the PLDRC find that the applicant has provided competent substantial evidence, the following conditions have been provided for consideration: that the variance is limited to the size and location of the proposed carport, and a letter of support was submitted from the adjacent neighbor to the west that would be most impacted, and it should be in the staff report. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? And Ms. Ray, I know the answer, but if this were bona fide agriculture, you could put it right on the lot line, correct?
It would be a non-residential farm building on a farm. So long as it's required by a BMP, they can put it wherever they want.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
As long as they have to comply with the floodplain, but I'm not sure they have any
Yeah.
floodplain issues here.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, is the applicant present? Would you like to come forward, ma'am?
My name is Jean Novotny, and
I need your address.
3541 Pioneer Trail,
Okay,
New
you've
Smyrna
heard the
Beach.
staff report. Anything you'd like to add to it?
Well, the only thing I had a question on, I thought my survey showed that the closest edge to the property line was 24 and a half feet, or 24 and a 6. I don't know whether there's a difference. And at one point, the surveyor thought because it was, that part of the land would be scheduled for residential. I think he had listed residential, some of the requirements for residential, R1 instead of the agriculture. But I understand it's agriculture and it's for the whole property. The other question is, the property was divided. My mother and father developed the property. It was divided into 4 parcels for the 4 living children. And so its minimum size is less than the minimum required for A1. It's more like A2 property. And the side yard setback for that would, as I understand it, is 25 feet. But you know, I'm willing to work with certainly that condition. And I submitted a picture showing how you could get around the carport. I mean, the roadway actually goes around the proposed carport area. Okay. And to the east, I'm willing to move it a little bit closer to the east. I was closer to the residence. I was just concerned about a large oak tree there. Okay. My brother said, well, just cut down the oak tree. And I said, the carport is not to shade the cars, but to keep the birds from seeking them as targets.
It looks like they're saying from the edge of the canal not the property line on this 19.
Yes, sir.
feet.
We had to measure from the edge of the canal.
Right,
not the
that's
top.
your
From the-
setback.
From the
edge of
drainage
the
canal.
From the, where it starts. So the
Yeah.
5 feet, where he measured
Top
was
of the
from the
bank.
center of the drainage ditch.
Correct.
It's a smaller drainage ditch. It's not like the canals that line Pioneer Trail.
Okay.
It's not that deep.
Should the setback be from the top of the bank, or should it be, because that variation is gonna change with the amount of water we receive as to where the edge of the water line is there, and it looks like you put it on the edge of the water, or did you go from the center of the ditch?
So I measured it from the dotted line on the, where it does say top of the bank. It's pointed to that gray kind of in the middle of the solid property line, and the red dotted line that's where it was measured.
Right, okay, all right.
So it is the top.
So
of
it's
the
not
bank
the center of the ditch, it's.
No, sir.
It's from, the okay,
From the edge of them.
got it.
Correct.
Okay,
And
that's
Mr.
why
Chair,
it
that's
says
something you can take into
19
consideration on determining whether to grant or deny this variance.
Right. It's going from the top of the bank of the ditch there, ma'am, not the property line for the 19.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Anything else? Anybody have any questions for the applicant? All right, I don't think we have any public participation forms for this, so we'll close the floor and get you a decision here real quick. Okay, we're gonna close the floor for public participation, open up for commission discussion or a motion.
Make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion, case V-24-012, that we approve the one variance with staff recommended condition, 1.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion on the floor to approve variance V-24012 with the one staff condition from Mr. Costa and a second from Ms. Shelley. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Shelley, could I get the next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number CPA-24-002. Small-scale comprehensive plan amendment from the commercial future land use FLU designation to the urban low-intensity ULI FLU designation.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. And this is Mr. Shams.
Hi, good morning. Steve Shams once again. The case following this is also related, so if it pleases.
Oh, you want me to read the
Yeah,
second
can
one
we
on the
read
record?
both of them into the record, and then we'll vote on each one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, case number Z-24-002, rezoning from the general commercial B4 zoning classification to the urban single-family residential R4 zoning classification.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley.
All
Mr.
right.
Shams?
Thank you. So the applicant's proposing a future land use change. I'll go through the future land use first, and then the rezoning. From commercial to urban low intensity on a 0.35 acre site to make the existing home conforming to the zoning ordinance. As stated, the applicant filed a companion rezoning case to rezone the property from B4 to R4. The home was originally built in 1972 and was part of the adjacent parcel, which is immediately to the east. They were one parcel. Prior to their subdivision and vesting in November 1978, this predated the zoning ordinance and resulted in a nonconformity once the ordinance was adopted. The property historically had a rural future land use and an A3 zoning class, but over time, a commercial future land use and B4 zoning class were applied to the property. The applicant purchased the property in February 2023 for renovation and intended to utilize the property as a short-term rental. However, short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning class, and the property was also found non-conforming. So his intention is to resolve the nonconformity by making it consistent with the home so the property can be sold. So immediately adjacent to this property, you can see on the map to the west is rural, and to the east and north and south is low impact urban. So what we had to do was kind of expand where we were looking when we analyzed this, and you can see in the northeast portion of this map, there is a large property within the city of Edgewater. So we did some research into this area, and the city of Edgewater has this site designated what they call low-density residential in R3, which are very comparable to the county's designations of ULI and R4. So I contacted the city of Edgewater and spoke to their planning manager and asked if he had any kind of reservations of this site being designated with county designations that are very similar. He said no, it's consistent with the development trends in the city of Edgewater, and it would make the property conforming, so it was the best solution staff could find. When looking at other options, the rural future land use would not permit the appropriate zoning class, and LIU requires a PUD, and this site is too small for a PUD per the county code. So due to the land use trends and Edgewater becoming more urban, the proposed urban low intensity is appropriate. The area is also within the Edgewater Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement area, so annexation of this property is a future possibility should the property owner, current owner, or future owner consent to doing so. Changing from a commercial future land use to urban low intensity would result in an overall decrease in developmental potential, and just based on potential trips, it would result in a reduction of 440 daily trips and 44 PM peak hour trips. So for the future land use change, staff recommended forwarding to the county council with a recommendation of approval. Would you like me to go through the zoning case now, or would you like to vote?
Yeah, go ahead with the zoning
Okay.
also, yes.
So the applicant also proposed rezoning the property from B4 general commercial to urban single family R4 to make the existing home conform to the zoning ordinance. The site is approximately 15,000 square feet, and R4 requires 7,500 square feet, so it more than meets that requirement. The use of the property is not expected to change because of the existing home. It will remain single-family residential and sold to a prospective buyer. Rezoning to R4 will ensure this can occur. Again, those surrounding properties are A3. This class would not make the property conforming, so staff recommended R4 to the applicant. And overall, staff recommends forwarding this case to the county council with a recommendation of approval. And I'm available for comment or question.
Thank you, Mr. Shams. Any questions for staff? As far as the county designation, the surrounding area, other than that one piece of commercial there for the future land use is R, rural. How come we're going with a different
So
classification?
The reason for that is the rural future land use typically only allows agricultural zoning classifications, and all of the A1 to A4 classifications require a lot area that's too large for this property because it was subdivided in the 70s. So that, in combination with the development trends in the city of Edgewater, which are right there, less than 400 feet east, we thought it was more appropriate to make the property conforming based on an existing class and not require any variations to the class.
Okay. All right. All right, is the applicant present? Good morning, sir. Can I get your
Morning.
name and address for the record?
Abraham Alamal Huda E, 493 Norris Lane, Lake Helen.
All right, you've heard the staff report. Anything you'd like to add to it?
Yes, what I would like to add is, from my understanding of the history, this property and the property to the east was once owned by Massey Airport and then sold to someone who did a similar rezoning on the east parcel, so my neighbor. But then this parcel was not. That's my understanding from talking to my neighbors. I have both of my neighbors' support as far as rezoning this to residential. They weren't even aware that it was a commercial property. They'd much rather have a resident, primary homeowner move in next to them rather than a business setup. This property was attempted to be sold in December, and there's such a short housing supply in New Smyrna Beach. It's one of the most desirable areas in Volusia County that it did have within days an asking price offer. So the intention is to sell the property. The problem I ran into was that no traditional bank will issue a loan on a non-conforming property because if it's destroyed, they don't have any collateral. So it's impossible to get a loan for this property, and therefore, outside of somebody who's going to bring in a lot of cash, because this is a fully remodeled home in a very desirable part of New Smyrna Beach, near impossible to sell with its current zoning.
Okay.
And historically, it has, talk to the neighbors, is historic. And my wife's a realtor, so she has all the as far back as the MLS goes, it's always been used as a residential home. It's never been used as a business. It's always looked like a residential home. It's always been used as a residential property.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? All right. Do we have any public participation for this case? We're going to close the floor for public participation and open up for commission discussion or a motion. We'll take the CPA first.
I'll make a motion that we approve case number CPA-24002. We find it consistent with the comp plan and forward the application to the County Council with a recommendation of approval to transmit to the Department of Economic Opportunity for expedited state review and to the Volusia Growth Management Commission for certification.
Second. That's a lot to say there, Edith.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a motion on the floor from Ms. Shelley in case CPA 24002. Define the future land use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and forward the application to the County Council with recommendation of approval to transmit to the Department of Economic Opportunity for expedited state review and to the Volusia Growth Management Commission for certification. And a second from Mr. Sixma. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Ms. Smith, you had a comment?
Just one clarification, it's not Department of Economic Opportunity, it would be Florida Department of Commerce now. It's an error in the report.
The report, okay. I have a question. How long will that take?
We send it up and it's pretty much done
Oh,
within
okay.
30 days.
It goes right through. Okay, it's not a long process for all of that. Okay, thank you. Just a question.
Okay, we'll to handle case Z24002 now.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we forward the rezoning application, case number Z-24002, to the County Council for final action with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion from Ms. Shelley for case Z24002 to forward the rezoning application to the County Council for final action with a recommendation of approval, and a second from Mr. Sixman. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Made it through the day. Okay, do we have any other public items?
No, sir.
Do we have any staff items?
No, sir.
Do we have any staff comments?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And I think this is for Mr. Costa, actually. You in the past had asked us to do a presentation to you for our land development process. I'm pleased to announce we finally have a land development manager that will be starting next week. So as soon as we get her up to speed, we will bring her in for a presentation to you.
That would be excellent, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any commission comments?
Yes.
Mr. Costa.
Not for this meeting, but for future meetings and until the moratorium expires. Can we get a brief update on the status of that moratorium on the fuel farm that we voted on last
So,
December?
The county council moved the final hearing for the moratorium for February 6th. So it is not in place yet. There's going to be a hearing on it on the 6th during the day meeting, and they will decide whether or not to enact a moratorium. In the meantime, staff is looking at the I-2 zoning district.
And does that clock on that moratorium is?
It's still backdated to November.
Goes backdated, okay. All right, thank you.
In line,
That's the update then.
in line with that, Mr. Soria, and I failed to mention this during our meeting, but is there any discussions with the city of Ormond to annex that into the city? Because obviously with their expansion of their developments, they're the ones that pretty much created this issue. And we're following
The city of
into
Ormond has provided their statements on whether or not they want to annex that property.
Because if we annex it in there, then they could pretty much zone it whatever they wanted to.
And the annexation is controlled by the cities, so the county cannot force an annexation. So that's a question for the city of Ormond Beach.
Well, they created it by putting the projects that in close proximity to the I-2 zoning, then they should be able to resolve the issue. Okay, that's my opinion on that. Okay, any other commission comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to thank the members this morning for allowing me to participate here. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there, but there was issues and I needed to take care of this morning.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And any other commission comments? As far as these I just wanted to address Mr. Costa, and I know you felt that the pool wasn't a big issue on the variance request for over by Bethune Beach there. But the problem is they take these substandard lots and they try to keep on adding to it and adding to it. And we must draw the line somewhere, even though no matter how common sense would say that it wouldn't make a difference, but we need to, and especially after the original variance stated he was going to be 2-story, and now they keep on and on. They just ask for more and more. That's where I was at on it. So hopefully you understand that, sir.
Me to understand that? All right, well, you opened the door, so I'm stepping in. So basically, if this was a 2-story house, you would have approved the variance? You would have supported the variance?
I am not, well, there again, I'd rather it become, I'm not going to open up Pandora's
Yeah, I
box.
understand it. So my contention was the opposition wasn't against the pool. The opposition was they didn't want a 3-story house there, period. And back to, by right, they are allowed to go up to 35 feet. Now, that's our problem when we passed the original variance by not putting a stipulation and limiting it to 2 stories. So now, at the end of the day, and anybody who's built their own house, as I have, you make changes on the fly. There's changes that continually occur. The pool, sometimes there's an afterthought. The overall, the location of the house, the height of the house, the square footage, those are things that you make there. It's a living, moving event as you're going through construction. So that if their intent was always to build 3-story and to deceive us at 2, I don't know that to be fact or fiction, honestly. But the opposition was not because of the pool's location. It was the opposition was because they were building a 3-story house. And that's why I voted the way I did, because you move that lot over 1, and this would have been a non-issue.
Okay.
And I respect everybody's vote. I mean, everybody has that. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and to their vote, and I respect it completely. That's I'm not saying it was right or wrong or indifferent, it's just we had a difference of opinion on this one.
Got it.
But also, that wasn't the only spot that they could put that pool. They could have, moved it elsewhere. But we might see them again because that hole in a roof is there for a reason.
And there's always an appeal. The applicant has 10 days from the rendition letter to appeal to the county council. County council can approve or deny. They are stuck with the evidence presented before this commission. They can also potentially remand that back to this commission. So my advice is to don't discuss that item outside of this chamber, because you could potentially see it again. It could go for a height variance. It could be remanded back for the pool variance.
That's why I addressed it now rather than doing sidebar with Mr. Costa. I just wanted to give him my line of thought as what the reasoning that, it seems like we just keep on adding more and more to these substandard lots. And truthfully speaking, let's face it, I don't know how it got that zoning to begin with either.
I think all of that is B8. It's like a B8 node. Yeah. So that's kind of like a tourist, multi-family, single family type area. I mean, it's B8 tourist district, so it allows hotels, motels, multifamily, and single family houses.
Yeah, but should it be allowed?
That's a policy decision. I will say for variances, there's a line of thought that, if you grant a variance to a property, that removes the hardship, because now they can develop in a reasonable manner. So, there's some lines of thought that you can't ask for another variance on the same set of facts. You can find another fact, such as topography or, the development of the adjacent property, or you run into an environmental issue that wasn't considered on the first variance. But the fact that you were granted, the first variance based on those facts removes the ability of a property owner to rely on those same set of facts when getting another variance, because this commission has granted them the ability to reasonably develop their property. You don't have to grant them more. You just have to make it that it's economically viable. You don't have to grant them, the world and allow them to develop more than is what is reasonable.
Yeah. And also the gentleman that spoke that is in the process of developing his property, he asked for some consistency. And even though variances is part of the consistency problem, we don't want to say, okay, pay us some money and you can have it,
The issue with that one is he's not a corner lot. This was a corner lot problem.
Yeah. Yeah, the two front. Yeah. Okay. All right, any other commission comments? Press and citizen comments? This meeting's adjourned.